we start to hit 13, 14 years old, that's when we're going to see a little bit of a dip because she's growing and her body's got to catch up. So we stay the course there. We don't freak out. We continue to make progress as we go.
Whether you live northeast, west, or south, the best fast pitch info comes from the coach's mouth. Welcome to the From the Coach's Mouth podcast with your hosts, Jay Bolden and Ken Kraus.
Hello, everyone. Welcome once again to the From the Coach's Mouth podcast. Ken and Jay here today. We are flying as a duet. We had a topic that we wanted to cover, and we thought we didn't want to hook anybody else in just yet. So we want to talk about this and probably a couple of other things. So, we're going to get that rolling. Jay, how you doing?
Pretty good, Ken. Doing really well. We're in May. It's getting close to the end of the school year, which is fantastic. Weather's getting warmer. It's tournament time, college softball. I know some schools and some players have already finished their season. They didn't make tournaments. So hopefully they're going to start doing some work in the off season and had a decent season at least. So how about yourself? How are lessons going? How are things going on your end?
Going pretty well. So with the weather being a little up and down and all of that, my lesson schedule changes moment by moment. We had a lot of rain today. I didn't have anything really scheduled, but had a lot of rain today, so I'm sure that the schools won't be playing, which means that's going to affect me down the line. They'll have a makeup game on a day that they thought they were going to be able to come out and see me. So we'll see how all of that goes. But, it's coming down, as far as high school goes, it's coming down to that exciting time. They're getting ready for conference tournaments and playoffs and all of that kind of thing. So we'll see what goes on.
Absolutely. Just last night, daughter had her 10U rec practice last night. And, it's just cool to see them learning, it's pretty awesome. The development in them. She's actually kind of surprised me. It's been, over the last couple of years, she's 10 and she's on the younger side. She has December birthday. So that whole age change thing has affected her. She could stay down at 10U one more year. And it was a good decision for her. You can see that she's, definitely improved and her knowledge and softball IQ has gotten a lot better too. So it was a good decision. We're excited. She's got her first game on Saturday. I really like the coaches that are coaching my kid right now. I'm not coaching her. Like I just go sit in the bleachers and I'll watch Game Changer and, that stuff. And they have a really good philosophy of letting these kids develop and being pushing them, but at the same time, also understanding when they make mistakes and errors. So it's cool to see. It's really cool to see.
Yeah. I think that's one of those things adults tend to forget a lot of times, that softball is a really complex game. It's like playing 3D chess in a lot of ways because everything is so dependent on the situation. Most sports have kind of a flow to them. So the ball is moving in one direction, let's say basketball or softball, or in hockey, the puck, it's kind of moving. You have an area of responsibility and it's fairly straightforward. But gosh, with softball, you're just standing there, pitcher's getting ready to throw the pitch. There's a runner on first and a runner on third. And where you're going to throw the ball from there is going to depend. If the ball comes to you and you're playing third base, do you look the runner back? Do you just go for the out? Well, it depends on what the score is and how late you are in the game and all these other factors. A 10-year-old or a 9-year-old trying to make those decisions until she's been exposed to that situation is going to have a hard time knowing what to do with the ball. So it's great that your daughter's coaches are keeping that in mind and saying, there's a lot to learn here. And we kind of find out, when something happens in a game, it exposes what we need to work on next.
Yeah, it's been interesting. We, she tried to do travel ball last year as a 9U. And it was for me, and I think for her, it was just too overwhelming. There was way too much pressure put on 9-year-olds at that level. There was a lot of hollering at kids, not a lot of instruction. When you have kids coming off the field who are crying because they're getting yelled at because they didn't make a play, I don't think that that's the right philosophy at that age. That's what really turns kids off from playing this game. No one wants to be screamed at when they're playing a game just because, coach wants to win every game, So I wanted to make sure that when we did this, we're getting back into softball, that we got with somebody who understood that development is the most important thing at this age, not really winning, right? Like, I don't care how many plastic rings my kid gets at the end. I really care that she develops, she learns the game. And on top of it, she has fun, because if it ain't fun and you're so worried and have anxiety about making a play because coach is going to yell at you, I don't think that that's a very good environment. So we had to kind of tap out of that early and be like, hey, listen, for the mental health of my own child. And it wasn't just like my kid that was crying, coming off the field crying. There were several. And I feel like, I want to win just as much as anybody can. But at the same time, I want kids to have fun. I want them to want to play the game. I want them to do that. And I feel like some of these organizations, if you will say, I don't want to say organizations, but coaches are so gung-ho on winning, right? Like, especially at the younger ages. Like, hey, if you're older, you're in, 14, 15, 16 that kind of stuff, 18 you want to win. I get it. But even at that level, I still feel like there has to be some form of development, right? And so, I don't think that ever stops. But yeah, it was last year was very hard for us. It was just, I saw that fire in her just go away because of what the situation was with those coaches and that team. And, it's like a breath of fresh air here. She's having fun. She's making new friends and those kinds of things. So it's super important. You ever experience anything like that with some of your younger players, Ken, at the 10U level, like where they're coming in and saying, hey, coach is just crazy. Like, they're yelling at these kids. Do you ever have any issues with that?
Oh yeah, all the time. I mean, I hear about these things. It's been going on for years. I had a girl that was, she was a tremendous, just a prodigy. Even at 10U, and then she wound up playing for a bigger name organization, a little bit more down, south, down your way somewhat, and it was still parent coaching and. The goalposts for her were constantly moving. They made her feel bad about herself. One week it was, all right, you got to be able to hit your spots. And then so she worked really hard. She was hitting her spots and said, well, you got to be able to throw this, or you have to be able to do that. So that hurt her. I've had other kids that, they were on a 10U team. There were two of them that I was working with. They were on a 10U team. They went to a tournament. I think they, maybe down in Peoria or somewhere where they had to travel. Parents had to take up the whole weekend. They had to, get a hotel room and all that. And the kids played 2 innings the entire time. Team played 6 or 7 games. The kids played 2 innings. And then, coaches wonder why kids aren't coming back or why they have trouble recruiting kids or getting kids to come on their teams. It's just wrong. We see so many stories about people who become very high level players. I mean, we've talked to some of them here on the podcast, and they became very high level players. But when they were young, they weren't. They were maybe the worst pitcher on their team, or they were the weakest hitter on their team, and they hadn't matured as quickly as some of the others. They hadn't learned as much. Maybe they had started a little later. And they had to have time to grow into who they were. But I think too many people get involved in this and right away, they want to go for that W. And so they're not going to play kids that they don't think are going to accomplish that.
Yeah, the red flag for me last year, I'm speaking last year with my 9-year-old daughter who's now 10, was when we're playing friendlies, basically a little bit of a round robin. And the same 8 kids or same 6 kids are batting 1 through 6. You're not switching out catchers and pitchers. You're maybe, the ones that you don't think are good, where are you sticking them? You're sticking them in the outfield, right? Yep. So they're not getting any reps. And so I think that was a red flag for me right away. And it was, Ken, where I actually called the coach and I said, hey, listen, I'm not questioning any of your decisions or your decisions in this game, but I want to know your philosophy. Is your philosophy of coaching to develop all 12 kids on this team, or is it just for the top 8 and the last 4 just go sit in the outfield? I said, or are you going to start mixing it up where the kids who are on the bottom of the order, who are batting, 9, 10, 11, 12, are they ever going to get a chance to bat 1, 2, 3, 4? Are they going to get some more innings at the catching position or at, pitcher or at, and it was like, oh no, yeah, we're just getting used to this team, this, and that. And then next week, same thing, same 8 kids in the order, same kids in the same spot and all that stuff. And, and I don't, even then I didn't have a problem with it. I'm like, you know what? She's got to earn it. She's got to earn it, right? She's got to work harder, this and that, but it's hard to earn those things when you don't have opportunities to do so. And what bothers me, this was the kicker for me, Ken, is you want to stick my kid in the outfield. I don't have a problem with that. However, can we hit him some pop-ups at practice?
Yeah.
Right. Like, yes. I mean, hey, you stick, if you're going to put him out there, let's get him some reps, right? So that they can work on those things. That wasn't even happening. And it was just, I hate to say it, but it was just dads, and they're doing the best they can. However, that's why when I talk to people about getting in organizations as they get older, I always say to them, you want to be in an organization that has somebody who's being paid to coach and gives you an unbiased opinion and basing their decisions on the talent that's in front of them. And I'm talking like when you're, 16U and 18U, right? And it's not like that in this particular place where my daughter was at. It's just dads doing things basically straight up through the top to the top, And so It was a bad experience. And we did not finish the year last year. We went back to rec ball and she had a great year. She started swinging the bat, hitting the ball. They're putting her in different positions. She got to catch. She got to play short. She got to go third, first, even outfield again. And I'm like, wow, it was like a light bulb for me, Ken. It was like, we took the anxiety out of it and now the kid's having fun playing ball again. Yeah. And so that's what I want for my kid. And this year it seems to be that way. She's having a blast. I was watching her last night. She's smiling, gets in the car, and I'm like, man, this is what it's about. So yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah. Although I'm going to ask you, because you are a college coach, I'm assuming that you do some recruiting work and all of that. I mean, let's be honest here. It's important, right? When you go out and recruit a kid, you do check and see how many 10U and 12U tournaments her team won and, what her stats were at that age and all of that, because, that's really a good indicator of whether that's a player you want, right?
Oh yeah. Every weekend, Ken, we're going out like, hey, there's a 13, 14U tournament this weekend down where I'm at. And I'm bringing my radar gun, and anybody who's not throwing the ball over 65 miles an hour this weekend, we're just absolutely not going to recruit them, and that's sarcasm for everybody who cannot sense that. And that's the point. Like it's so much about in this game about how you rebound from failure, because it's a game of failure, like you and I have talked about. Right. And again, right. I've seen plenty of kids who come out of the box throwing, hey, we got this 12-year-old throwing 63. Mm-hmm. That's great. And then all of a sudden you're like, well, where is she at 16? Oh, she's not playing anymore. Oh, what do you mean? It's a thing. I always tell people, like, your progress isn't always linear. It's going to have ups and downs, peaks and valleys. And when these kids go through growth spurts, I think, for me as a pitching instructor, I'll tell families like, hey, we start to hit 13, 14 years old. That's when we're going to see a little bit of a dip, because she's growing and her body's got to catch up. So we stay the course there. We don't freak out. We continue to make progress as we go. And, it's hard for parents. Well, why is she going backwards? And it's like, it's a part of this whole thing here. But like you're saying, yeah, I'm not going out there. And even at 16, people don't realize it. You think development starts when you get, or stops when you get to college? You look at some of these freshman pitchers that are currently pitching in Division I right now. You look at their freshman year, and then you come back 3 years later and you look at them as a senior. You don't think development happened over that time period? All of a sudden their ERAs are lower, their strikeouts are higher. Because why? Because they've developed still as a college athlete. So development doesn't stop when you get to college, it continues. And I think that's where we're at. Is like, the thing for me is I don't want to hinder that development. I want to try to encourage it. And I think that's something that a lot of these coaches don't do. They just get so focused in the W. We got to get that little ring at the end and the medal. and brag about it, And again, Ken, I've never asked a kid, hey, how many tournaments did you win when you were 10 years old or 12 years old? And I think that's important to understand. It's, you got to let them develop, and that's when the real victories happen.
Yeah, absolutely. And when you think about it, looking at the way, and pitching is probably one of the spots that most gets affected by that, because, I'm looking at it at the 10U, the 12U level. I've got some beginners. I'm sure you have some beginners. And, the kids are working hard. They're trying to learn their mechanics. They're trying to get the hang of it, but they may not be that great at it right now, and you'll see a coach on a team. We follow it on Game Changer. And when the team is playing, it's always the same one or two kids because they can get the ball over the plate. Okay. They can throw strikes reliably. Maybe they're a little bit bigger and stronger and they throw harder. So they're getting, almost 100% of the innings. There's these other kids that are working sincerely and trying to get better, but they never get a chance to see the field. Even like you said before, with the friendlies and the stuff that doesn't mean anything. That's your opportunity to put those kids in there, give them some game experience, and stay with them. So let's say the kid goes in there, walks the first three hitters. Don't yank her. Who cares? What if what difference does it make if you lose 19 to 1? It'd be nice to win. It certainly would have been nice if your team could have put up 20 and that would have made up for it. But, these kids need that time in the circle in a game situation to develop and grow. And you never know who right now is terrible that's going to keep working at it and has the potential and the desire and will become a stud pitcher long after some of those kids that you thought were so great quit playing or stall out. They don't work at it as hard because they were bigger and stronger and they could just get by on that. Or they were throwing 33-mile-an-hour meatballs that, you didn't have the walks. You didn't have to defend the walks, as they always like to say. But those kids are not going to continue to pitch if they're not growing and developing and, doing better.
This is what I'm doing next year, Ken. I want to get your thoughts on this, where you're at here. So we are going to do a semi-travel team next year with a really good organization. And I have permission from the organization's director to make it a semi-travel developmental team. So what we're going to do is we're going to play 7 total tournaments all year, probably 3 in the fall and 4 in the summer, giving them every other week off. Okay. Not only are we going to do that, but what we are going to do is we're going to do this, Ken. We are going to have 1 day of practice where it is nothing but fundamentals, fielding the ball, throwing the ball, drop steps, all of that wonderful defensive side of the game. Just fundamentals, right? Yeah. And we're also going to have another day of situational. Okay, we just practiced ground balls today. We've got a runner on first and second. What are you doing with the ball? Where are you going? And everybody's going to be talking, communicating, those kinds of things. So that'll be on our second day. Our third day will be a day of hitting. So we are going to practice pretty much 3 days a week and focus on the development of these kids and only play 7 tournaments. Now, we might throw some friendlies in there, here or there. However, it's going to be based on developmental, and it's also going to allow kids to be athletes as well. I want my daughter to do tumbling. And if she has to miss a defensive practice for tumbling, I'm okay with that because I want an athlete first and a softball player second. Ken, what are your thoughts on some of that, what I just said? I mean, what do you think?
I love that idea. I think, first of all, especially at the younger ages, to be a little bit focused on that and, looking at one aspect of the game and let them really kind of get the reps in there, get their opportunities to make a few mistakes and then recover from it, do it again, get that in there, get better at it. And then to take another day where they're just trying to say, okay, we learn these ground ball fielding techniques. We learn these line drive and fly ball techniques. Now here's how we're going to apply them. Here's where they go in the game. I think that's really a tremendous idea, and certainly better than I think it was Joanna Lane that was talking about, when you see the practices where kids are, they're all lined up and the coach is hitting a ground ball to one kid at a time. and they're picking it up and throwing it back. I think to have that context in there, I'm sure you'll have them spread out around the field. I would imagine that you're going to move them around as well so that kids can find out what positions suit them better. Again, you see that where all of a sudden a kid who never had a chance to, say, play first base, you put her in there and all of a sudden you find out, man, this is a kid that just naturally will do the splits to try to get the ball in order to get the out, or who understands where to position herself and all that. If you've never given her that opportunity, never put her in that position where she has the chance, I think it's going to, it could stunt her growth. It'll make it less likely she's going to stay with the game. As a coach, I always tried to look at what are the kids' strengths and how do those apply to the game. I remember somebody, I think it was Rob Cruz that said something about, some kids just pick the wrong sport. And it may not be that they're in the wrong sport, but maybe they're in the wrong position. I think there's room for everybody on the softball bus. Then you just have to find out which seats they belong in. Otherwise, it's going to be kind of tough.
Everything you said there is exactly what I'm looking for and trying to do with this team. It's funny, when one of the parents came in, they were like, well, how many pitchers should we take? And I'm like, well, how many do we have? And they're like, well, we have so-and-so who's really good at this age. We have another one who's really good, but we have another kid who really is trying to work hard. I go, well, why wouldn't you take her and then another kid as well? Because they all should get time to develop. And that if our goal is to develop these kids, then why wouldn't we take 3 pitchers or 4 pitchers and give those kids opportunities to get that kind of experience in the game to develop? And I think, they were like, oh yeah, that's it. And I told them, like, I don't care if we win a tournament. I don't care if we win 5 games the whole year. I want to have fun. And I told them, I said, I think one of the things we're going to try to do with this is after our tournaments, Ken, is we're going to try to like cook out with the family, let these kids make friends outside of their schools, because they all go to some different schools and so on and so forth. And that's the important thing for me, is that when this is all said and done, it's just going to help my kid be a better person in the end. And that's truly what matters to me. Right. And if we help her skills develop, that's good. And they were all on the same page because their kids are in multiple sports. So we're not going to hold it against kids if they have to miss something. They have a basketball practice, right? Like, it's not like they're sitting at home playing video games. They're actually out. They're actually out being an athlete. And I think that's the important thing, is allowing these kids to be athletes and then trying to develop their skill set when we have them. And yeah, like you said, like, there's not going to be one line of kids at shortstop or one line of kids in the outfield. Like, we're going to split them up. We are going to have 3 or 4 coaches where we can break them down, right? And rotate them through stations. I say this all the time. If somebody's listening to this, maybe incorporate this into your practice. When you're doing front toss, right, and you're having hitters hit and you have a defense that's on the field, why are you not doing base running during that time too? Why wouldn't you put a runner at first and say, okay, the first 4 pitches when we're doing front toss, you're going to work on your leadoff, okay? Then on the next one, you're going to come off the bag and you're going to look to see if the bunt is down, right? And then you go back. And then on your last one, your 6th or 7th one, you're going to steal and slide at second base. And then we'll restart it from second base. Now we're working on base running while someone's working on hitting, while someone else is working on defense. That's how we're getting repetitions. That's how we're getting softball IQ. That's how we're reading the ball off the bat as a base runner, right? And spending time on those things. So that's kind of the practices I want to run. I don't want to be running there with, like Joanna said, like, one line of kids at shortstop and one dad's hitting and the other coach is catching for them. Like, that's not what it's about.
Right. And, when you look at it too, you can operate all of those things independently. So the base running part, if the kid does hit it, you can make that situational and, you get the defense involved, but, you don't have to have it that way. That kid's working on base running, whether the ball is being hit or not. And so everybody is active, everybody's moving, everybody's getting a different aspect and a different view of parts of the game. I think that makes a lot of sense, Jay.
Ken, I have to give credit. Years ago, I saw Heather Tarr speak, the head coach from Washington. And she said something to me, I think, that changed me. At the time, I was still coaching travel ball, and we were 14U level. We had 4 pitchers, 4 catchers. I just had a rotation, right? But she said, you want to work on functional defense. And I'm like, well, what does she mean? So she posts a video of how Washington warms up. Every time they throw the ball, Ken, they tag.
Yeah.
Every time that they throw the ball, like they do a warm up, there's a tag. Then they'll do a part where they actually throw the ball behind themselves and they run to get it, kind of like a ball that got hit to the wall. And then the other player comes in as if they're receiving a cutoff. That's all in a warm up, Ken. That's them before, instead of getting on one knee and just flipping the ball back and forth to each other to warm up, they're doing functional work through their warm up. They're shuffling their feet instead of standing still and just throwing. Like, because in the game, you're going to move. You're not going to stand still, right? And so I took that and I saw some of her drills that she posted in videos where it was awesome. She brought them into like a very small diamond, right? So she brought like the bases in and worked on, we're going to roll the ball here. You're going to throw to one. You're going to follow your throw to one. From the first baseman, again, doesn't matter if you're a first baseman, the person at first base is going to work on their timing to catch the throw and then shuffle into their throw and throw it to second base. The person at second base is going to receive the throw from the first baseman, put a tag down, right, and go into a rundown at third. Ken, I'm like, this is amazing. This is what it's about. Yeah. We just covered almost everything that could possibly happen in a game in one simple drill where every single kid is doing the things that they need to do. It changed me as a coach. I'm like, this is how we have to coach. We can't just sit here and hit ground balls at kids anymore. It has to be functional. There should be a purpose behind every time we throw a ball, there has to be a purpose behind it. Right. And I think that's some of the things that I've taken away from some of these coaches that have put some of that stuff out there.
Well, yeah. And one of the things with that too is that with all of that moving, it's conditioning as well. I mean, that was one of the things I would say is that when I would get my kids back, when they got a little bit older and they'd been in high school ball and they had done all of this so-called conditioning, and I would tell them, I don't need you to be doing all this running around in the outfield and doing all these special things and all that. I said, yeah, I can probably break your conditioning in the infield just by doing things that require faster movements and more continuous movements. Burst and recover, burst and recover. That's what the sport's all about. You don't need to be able to run, 50 foul poles. That's not that kind of sport. It's not soccer. It's not basketball.
So true. Do you remember a few weeks ago when we were talking and I told you the year where all we did was throw and the kid's arm was just jello right? And so we would do like a Wednesday where we wouldn't even throw the ball. However, Ken, those drills coming at those kids was nonstop. They were drenched in sweat and yet we never threw a ball. And it was movement based. It was forehand, backhand. It was flips. It was all of these things that were functional without ever having to throw till your arms falling off. And it was, again, skill development, skill based. And again, they were absolutely drenched in sweat because why? And so the point of that is like, I had one coach that asked me, goes, well, when are we going to do conditioning? I'm like, we're doing it right now. I'm like, if you do this right, the drills will turn into the conditioning. Because what conditioning are you getting running foul pole to foul pole, right? Most of them are jogging. However, in some of them, that's a punishment. Why do you want that to be a punishment when you can get more work ethic out of these kids through these drills? If you just understand that, it's like how you word it to these kids. They don't know that they're doing conditioning and building reps and skills at the same time. You know what I mean? But yet, let's go run a foul pole because, this. And it's like, okay, well, like if we do more skill-based stuff, we don't have to worry about conditioning. They're going to be dying. Drenched. Oh, yeah. They're drenched. Yeah.
Yeah, when I'm training catchers, okay, that's a very small part of my business, but I do work with catchers, when I'm training them to block. So I do a little thing, I call it left, center, right, after the drinking game. But I just hold a ball up in front of me, and then I say, okay, wherever I take the ball. So if I take it down right straight in front of me, you block straight in. If I take it to my right, you block to your left. If I take it to my left, you block to your right. Okay, very good. All right, so we take it, they do the block. Okay, good. They get back, get themselves set up again. I throw another one. We do a few of those. Once they've got the hang of it, I said, okay, now here's where it becomes real, because we're going to work on two things. We're going to work on your ability to read and recognize, and we're going to work on your conditioning. Here's the deal. When I throw that down, you do the block, and you immediately scramble back up, and as soon as you're set, I'm throwing another one. So, it takes them about, especially the younger ones, takes them about 4 or 5 of those, and you can see they're already huffing and puffing. But the more they do that, the better condition they get in, the better they're able to recognize where a pitch is going, and they start building up their legs. You need probably, 3 feet to either side of a plate. That's all the space you need to do that. And like you said, they'll be drenched in sweat.
Yeah. And I think one of the things that I've been seeing is you're starting to see more and more of these just tournament teams, right? They're going to do their hitting on their own. They're going to do their fielding on their own. If they do it, they're going to do their thing. And they don't have these team practices anymore. You just show up and play. And then they get to college and you expect them to know these things and they don't know it. Right. Or they have a hard time with it because now you actually have to put work in all the time. 6 days a week here. It's not just, hey, I'm going to go to my hitting lesson for an hour on Tuesday and I'm going to do some defensive stuff, on Thursday. It's like, okay, yeah, no, you're going to do that 6 days a week. You're going to hit. And then on top of that, you're going to do your classwork as well too. And so it becomes overwhelming for some of them, and going back to where it is like, I remember, and again, this is not to date myself or you, but I remember back in the day when travel ball used to be like, you would practice 2 or 3 days a week and you'd have a friendly in between. Then you'd play on Saturday and Sunday, or sometimes Friday, Saturday, Sunday. But It was mostly practice. You'd have an actual practice and a friendly stuck in between it. And that's changed for a lot of organizations, or it's, hey, let's come down for 4 hours on one day and have a practice, and again, they're missing some of those things when they get to the next level, and trying to balance that is difficult for them.
Well, and don't you think they miss out on the grind of being on a team? Being with the same people 3-4 days a week. They get to college and all of a sudden that's a different experience. You're with the same people every day and you have to learn how to interact with them. You have to learn how to fit in with them more on a daily basis. I think, to me anyway, it would seem like that's different than meeting up at the airport on Friday or Thursday night or whatever, and then you guys play for a few days. You play Saturday, you play Sunday, and then you go home.
Yeah.
And you don't have any other interactions till next weekend.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's when people run into issues, or not issues, but have a hard time with high school ball and then at the collegiate level, is because it is 6 days a week, same people. So that's where your culture comes in really into effect during those teams, because you have to balance 18 kids or 14 kids at the high school, and then you got to balance 25 or 30 at the college level, and 30 people plus coaching staff. I mean, that's a lot of different personalities and thoughts and all those things. And so that's where your culture comes into play, and team building, right? Like, team building is a very important thing for these kids. And that's what I want to do with, our 10U team. I want to do team building things so that these kids get to know each other and have fun with each other and trust each other and also make great friends as they go along. And I think a lot of that is just missing out. I mean, a lot of them do that, but it's definitely changed over the years. Like I said, Kevin, the development piece is not just something that happens at 10U or 12U. It happens even all the way through, honestly. I mean, you've heard, we've talked about when we talked to Rick and Sarah's highest speed being when she was 27, 28 years old. She didn't stop developing. She's, and we have to remember that we have to continue to give people opportunities to develop, right? Regardless if we win or lose, we have to give them opportunities to develop.
Right. Well, I mean, when we talked to Lauren too, she said that when she was at Florida, she didn't really become who we think of her as until she was a senior. She said she struggled some in the college game and she couldn't take over the number one spot because she just wasn't ready for it. She kept on developing though, and she didn't even get what she thought was a good change up until her senior year.
Yeah.
Like December of her senior year.
Yeah.
So you have to be able to develop, and that's why it's so important at the younger ages to get into that development mindset.
Yeah. Yes, for sure.
So, and another thing I wanted to go back kind of because you talked a little bit about, injury and all of that. And I'm going to look specifically at pitchers for this in the younger level. So let's say you have one stud pitcher. Okay. So, you can win games, you can win tournaments on her arm. And then you get another kid that's pretty good. And then you've got a couple of other kids that are, let's just say they're developing. Well, if you take that stud kid and you throw her all weekend in the tournament, and then you come back in and you do a round robin on Tuesday, or, maybe a doubleheader on Tuesday, and you're mostly going to throw her. And then, there's another one, she's going to practice on Thursday. She has her pitching lesson. That kid's going to develop arm trouble. I don't care what you think or how natural you think the pitching motion is in fast pitch softball. You do that much repetition on anything, and there's going to be injuries.
Yes, absolutely. Again, and that's when you start to see those kids who are supposedly throwing 63 at 10 and 12, those numbers start to decline rapidly, or they're so injured that they can't pitch, right? I always say this too,
right.
And you're talking about injury. If your kid is injured and having pain when they pitch, that is a red flag that something mechanically is not correct, right? And that is time for you to really get those mechanics broken down, right? Like, let's take a look at what's going on here. And again, and that could be overuse as well too. However, but if you're having pain, right, when you're pitching, like especially like you're talking ankles and knees and lower back or shoulder, that is something where you absolutely as a parent have to say, that's not right, right? That's not right. That's a red flag that something mechanically is not good. And then when you run into that, where you're going to take those mechanics on top of, if that's your number one, and you're going to overthrow that kid, that kid's asking for an injury, and that's the one thing we don't want. Again, there's plenty of time to throw the ball hard and learn how to spin the ball better, but if you're injured, you can't do any of that, and that's the biggest thing. And at the same time too, when I was coaching travel ball, we were it was an A-level organization. So we did the Colorado thing. We did the California thing. We did those things, Ken. And, we had 4 pitchers and I had 4 catchers, right? And what I told them and the parents from day one is we are just going to rotate kids, right? Because we need to learn how to play defense. It doesn't matter who's pitching. You got to learn how to play defense, right? Catchers need to learn how to block. And that's what I did. And you know what? I think the people that got the most angry were the parents because they wanted to win every game. And I'm like, guys, and we still ended up being, I don't know, like 35 and 31 that whole entire year. I mean, we still won games, and we actually came in second place in a tournament and stuff like that. And I'm like, I'm not going to sabotage a kid's development because you guys won a trophy, right? At 14, which nobody's going to care about when they're 16 anyway. Right. And I think, but you have to be clear with the parents, and they have to understand that listen, if you're here, I tell them all the time, if you're here to win every tournament, I am the wrong coach for you. I want to win every game. Don't get me wrong. However, I want to see kids develop. So if I know that I have a pitcher that's on that team who's like, hey coach, we just started working this rise ball in at my pitching lesson, and it's starting to look pretty good. Hey, let's throw that this weekend. Let's throw it.
Yeah.
Right. Like, how do you get confidence and build confidence with these kids unless you let them try what they're doing? And I think that is it. And it might cost you a game, Ken. She might throw that rise ball with the winning run on third base and overthrows, it's a wild pitch. You know what? So be it. Next week it's going to look better, and it is what it is. And again, I think that's part of it too is, parents have to understand that you want development. Wins will come. Right? Wins will come.
Yeah, absolutely. They will. And, if you're trying a new pitch, what I always tell the kids is, talk to your coach and pick a safe time to throw it. So don't throw it with a runner on third, the winning run on third. But you can say, all right, first pitch or second pitch, something like that, nobody on base, give it a try. Hey, maybe it'll work. Try it again. Try it a few times and give it the opportunity to breathe a little bit. find out how good it can be. Maybe you're going to throw it pretty well. Now, Jay, I have another question for you. All right, so we've talked about give these kids the opportunity, put them in there to play, okay? So let's say you've got 4 kids that are, either taking lessons or at least working diligently on their own with their parents. Maybe mom or dad went through the Rick Pauly course and learned, pitching mechanics from there and is working with the kid on their own. Then you have 3 other girls who never work at it and they say they want to pitch too. Are you okay with saying, we're probably not going to pitch those other 3? I mean, I would be, I might give them a little bit of a chance or let them do it in practice. But if you want to play such an important position like that, you got to put in the work, don't you think?
Absolutely. I think that's a part of it. I think that you going to lesson tells me that you are invested in getting better, right? And that you are even, and again, you might only be going to lessons every other week, but it still tells me you're invested in it, right? That you're, you want to get better. And so, of course, that there might be an opportunity for one of those 3 kids to say, hey, let's give you a try, right? And if there's, build some confidence with them and say, hey, okay, that's great. Right now, if you want to keep doing this, you want to continue to progress and start taking some lessons or those, that type of thing where you're encouraging them to continue down the path that they're on. And I think, that's important too, especially in the rec ball thing. Everybody wants to pitch, and there are some that are actually taking lessons and doing a really good job of that. But I still feel at the rec ball level, we need to give those kids who are at least want to try, give them a try. And I always did. It might not always be great, but at least they're getting an opportunity. And who knows? Again, we don't know. One of those 3 might be better than the 4 that are taking the lessons anyways when it's all said and done. We don't know this, right? So we have to encourage kids to continue to do the things that they are interested in and passionate about, right? And I think that's the thing. My buddy and I never promised any wins. The only thing that we promised every time that we did a team is that your kid will be better than we got them. And that's all we ever promised, that they're going to build skills and they're going to be better. Wins and losses will happen. They're going to come and go. However, your kid is going to develop and they will be better than they were when we got them on day one. And that's the only promise that we would ever give any team that we had with parents. So I think, that's important. Go ahead, Ken.
Oh, I was just going to say I was the same way. When I was coaching travel teams, that was my goal, was that when your kid walks out of here, she's going to be a much better ball player than when she walked in. And it was nice because I would, especially toward the end of my time coaching with my younger daughter, coaching 16U, 18U, we'd get a kid that came in that, played high school ball with another girl on the team, wasn't happy with the team she'd been on, came over by us, got opportunity, got training. And, I can't tell you how many people came up to me afterwards and said, oh my gosh, I wish we would have found you 4 years ago, because my daughter learned more in this year than she's learned, on her old team in 4 years. And actually I had one that there were a couple of girls that had to leave the team because their high school coach was putting a summer team together and they felt like they were going to have a chance to play varsity and do all this. They really had to go with that high school coach. Well, they ended up actually coming back to go with us to nationals. And, one of the moms said to me, she goes, we had to do what we did, but we're glad to be back, and said, my daughter learned more today in this practice than she did the entire summer.
Yeah. And that's what it's really, truly about, right? Nobody said, hey, thanks for winning all those games, Ken, right? Nobody said that to you.
Yeah.
Right? They said, thank you for this. The experience was great. 2, my kid got better. That's all that really matters, right? That's all that matters, right? All the wins and losses are going to take care of themselves. I say this to people all the time. Every game that you have lost, when your kid is there at their high school on the day when they're going to sign their letter to play in college, you have absolutely won every game you've lost at that moment right there. That's what matters. And you never would have got there if your kid wouldn't have developed and done the things that they were supposed to do. And I think that's an important thing for people to realize. Like, Yeah, wins and losses are going to come. I hate losing, Ken. I hate it.
Me
At the
too.
college level, I hate it. Even in travel ball, I hate it. But I have, and a quick funny story is that, I would get all fired up with these 14-year-olds, right? I'm like, oh my God, how could she not make that play? And then my buddy that would coach me forever, he'd look at me and go, hey man, they're 13 years old. And I'm like, you know what? Oh my gosh, you're right. I got to calm down. Right? Like putting it in, he would always keep me level headed and keep it in perspective. Like they're still learning, man. You know what? They made the mistake. Now we need to coach that up at the next practice so that, that they don't make that mistake again. And I'm like, man, I'm like, yeah, that's perspective, keeping me in perspective of not getting over crazy about this, our emotions get the best of us sometimes. And he would always kind of keep me level headed. But I want to ask you, Ken, and maybe you have something for everybody who's listening, or maybe you don't. But what do you think are some good drills to be doing at some of these practices to help these kids develop? Let's just say, what do you want to say? You can pick the topic: outfield, infield. Give us something, Ken. Give us a little softball nugget here that maybe somebody who's listening who's got a 10U team or a 12U team, and they're like, okay, well, how can I make my practices more efficient? What can I do to get some more skill development? You got anything for us that you can share?
Well, I think one of the big standards, and I actually learned this in one of the NFCA coaches college classes and really took it to heart and saw a huge improvement, is what's commonly called dailies. You have, one line on one side, one line on the other side. The girls are maybe 10 feet apart. They're down on their knees. And one tosses a one hopper to the girl across from her. The girl that's across fields it, and then she takes it and throws the one hopper right back to her. And then they go forehand and they go backhand. And you just do that every day. Every time in practice, we always made that part of our practice, part of our warm-ups before a game. And I'll tell you what, the fielding errors drop dramatically just by doing that.
Hence the reason they call them dailies, right? You should be doing them daily.
Right.
And again, I say this to kids all the time. You don't need a partner to do those. You could take a tennis ball, throw it against the wall, right? Downstairs in your basement, Throw it against the wall, throw it against your door. Probably drive your parents nuts, but you can do those things. I would say one thing that this is something that I would always do, and I do this with my daughter now when we play catch, is I try to be a moving target. Right. So instead of me just standing straight in front of my daughter and just playing catch with her, I will slowly take 3 or 4 steps to the left, and I'll put my mitt out, and I want her to throw the ball to where my mitt is, because in this game, you're not standing, you're moving. Kids need to learn how to throw and catch on the run. And so when I catch the ball, she'll do the same thing. I'll make her move and try to catch the ball at the same time. And now this is a 10-year-old, right? And she does a pretty good job with it. Is it perfect? No. But is she learning how to move in space without the ball? Yes. And I think that is something where we get so restrictive in our drills with these kids. That's why you see the one line at shortstop and they're hitting the ball directly to them, right? Or if this kid's going to be a middle infielder, or doesn't even meet, she can be a corner, and there's a steal at third base. She has to learn how to move and catch the ball at the same time by using her body to move differently. So that's one of the things I always would like to do. Even when we would do flips, Ken, I would just start it with flips, right? You've got one person moving towards somebody, flipping the ball to somebody. And sometimes I would have that person even move to flip and then go for a tag instead. Like just things that I would just add, because nothing ever stays completely still in this game. Right. Like, and I think that's something you have to train. And the earlier you can do it, it's not going to be perfect, but I think it helps these kids. And again, there's I want her to be an athlete first and softball player second. Right. Like, and so I think that's one, I think if anybody's listening would be good too, especially the dailies. The dailies are something that we at St. Xavier, we do them daily. It's a true statement. We do them daily. So yeah, those are both really good things.
Okay, another one I was thinking of. I actually have 2 more that I would go into.
Awesome.
So the 4 corners drill. So you have let's say 3 kids. If you've got a team of 12, you have 3 kids at each base. Start the ball at home. The kid will throw left, then sprint right, go to first base, And then the person who receives the ball at third base, she throws to second base, runs home. Everybody's sprinting, everybody's running. And then what you do is you put a stopwatch on that. So now they can't just take their time and do it. You say, okay, we're going to set a standard here. You do it the first time and you get your time and say, okay, now we got to beat that time. And if they don't beat it, we're going to try it again. So now you get through, you make some mistakes or you don't quite get there. Now they're more fatigued trying to go faster than they did when they were fresh. But it teaches them throwing, it teaches them footwork, it teaches them to adjust to the ball. I mean, there's just so many things, and you get your conditioning in. Those kids will kill themselves trying to beat that time just because it's fun. So they will sprint. And then if you really want to make it challenging, put one kid at each base and do the same drill.
That is a great drill. That's a fantastic drill. I love that one, Ken. I love that one. Here's one that I did, and I think it was a little bit more for morale, right? And also kind of gave me an idea of who I'm coaching and what this kid is like, right? So, and props to Carol Brueggemann at the NFCA. I absolutely stole this from her. She called it, I believe it was called the Cardinal Race Drill. And what she did is, what they would do is, so let's say in your practice plan, you're going to be working on drop steps with your outfielders. Your other coach is going to be working on turning two, right? And then let's say also at the same time, your other coach is working on bunting. Okay. So we knew that day for that practice, we had everybody was, and we would rotate them. Somebody's working on bunting. You've got 3 kids probably working on turning two, and you've got probably 5 or 6 kids or 3 or 4 kids out there working on drop steps with a catch. At the end of practice, I would say, okay, here's what we're going to do. I need 3 kids who are going to turn 3 double plays flawlessly. I need 1 kid who's going to put 3 good bunts down. And I need 2 kids who are going to do drop step left, drop step right, and make the pop-up catch as I throw it. Okay. And if you got to do, let's say 2 out of 3, right? So you had to get 2 out of 3 bunts down. You had to get 2 out of the 3 pop-ups down. And the goal was this, is what we would do. And Ken, I think you'll like this too, is I told them for anything that we don't complete, we're going to have to do a sprint. However, we're going to do a sprint from first to second, and I'm going to make a windmill throw to practice your timing. So at most, you would have to do 3 sprints if we failed everything. However, if your teammate succeeds, you don't have to do a sprint for that. So now you just have 2. However, if your teammate does succeed, you have to attack her like she just won the Women's College World Series and jump for joy and build her up. And if she doesn't succeed, you have to be a good teammate and pick her up and say, hey, you got it. And so what I would do, Ken, is if they ever failed, I would say, hey, double or nothing. Right. And kids can always say no. And that just gave me an idea of, okay, I've got the winning run on third base and I'm going to try a safety squeeze with a kid. And I've got 2 kids or 3 kids on my bench as a sub, or maybe I want that. Is that the kid that I want to be in there during that time if she says no to my double or nothing? Right. And so it just gives you an idea of the players. And so again, it just would build team morale too. So then we'd go and do the double plays and they would do it. And we'd be like, yeah, right. And so now, because they need to know that and celebrate those things, and they do the drop steps. And occasionally we wouldn't do it, and a kid would fail on a double or nothing. And we would have to do 2 sprints. However, they weren't full sprints, foul pole to foul pole. You were at first base practicing your leadoff, and I was making a windmill for you, a pitch for you to time your timing. And that's how we would do it. And we would end every practice like that, trying to build morale and also putting kids on the spot to make those plays. And when they do it, they feel good about it, building that confidence.
And then would you have the kids pick themselves who's going to do what, or volunteer, say, okay, I'll bunt?
Yes. And Ken, the rule was whoever we picked that day, we would only do this, I think, twice a week, right? Because you're going to run out of players. Again, we would still do stuff, right? The rule was whoever we picked could not be picked the next time we did it.
Oh, right? Yeah.
So now you have to put kids into those successful positions for them to be successful and to fail, because again, this game is about failure. However, your teammates are the people who pick you up.
Oh, yeah. I
And
like that.
again, it's based on what we were practicing during the practice. So it was related. And again, totally stole that from Carol Brueggemann over there at the NFCA, which I hope we can get on this podcast to be a guest because she's fantastic.
Yes, she is. Putting them under pressure. That's another important part of this is, it's the fun aspect is putting them under pressure, trying to get them to understand how to do this in context. Something else I was going to bring up, and I think this is important at the younger ages to remember, and that's like when you're hitting ground balls, you don't have to try to hit them as hard as you can. That really takes the kids out of context. So I'm a big guy. Jay, you're a big guy. Even at our advanced ages, we can still probably hit the ball pretty hard on the ground, certainly relative to what a 10-year-old or a 12-year-old would expect. But if you are sitting there hitting rockets at them on the ground, they're going to tend to back up. They're going to get afraid of the ball. They're not going to want to get in there and field it. And most importantly, they're unlikely to see that level of ground ball more than once or twice in a season. So it's really important, in my opinion, that you match the skill level that you need out of the kids to what they're going to see in the game. So you hit them easier, not because you're laying off of them, but because that's what they're going to have to field. And I just want to also add to that, this is the reason why you see so many kids having to be forced to charge the ball and reminded to charge the ball because they're used to sitting back on their heels or backing up because a coach, an adult coach is rocketing the ball at them. Hit them what's more realistic. Let them learn how to charge that ball and come in and make the throw on the run. And you'll probably see a lot more success as well, don't you think?
Yeah, 100%, Ken. I think that's, we always start every practice by rolling the ball. So we do what we call the bucket drill. And basically, I have a bucket of balls that I'm rolling it to them. They're charging it. They're running around me. They're putting it in the bucket. And again, it's rapid fire. So as soon as I roll the first ball and that kid has that ball, boom, they're charging it. As soon as that kid's charging it, I'm already rolling the next ball to the person there. And I've got a line of about 4 kids. And we talked about, them getting that conditioning. It's nonstop. And they're charging the ball. We're teaching them to charge the ball by rolling the ball. You look at Mike Candrea and what he did at Arizona. Yeah. He'll tell you, we start every practice rolling the ball, then hitting the ball, right? And moving from there. And I think that's how it's progression. It has to have a progression to it. Every drill has to have a progression to it. And if you're just winging it, that's fine. But like for me, it was more about writing practice plans. And I would share with all my coaches before, and I would say, hey, what do you guys think? Does anybody want to add, subtract, delete any of this stuff? So those are super important things of being prepared for practice. And at the same time, I would overplan knowing we probably weren't getting to everything, right? Instead of underplan and standing around with like, okay, well, what do we do with them now? Right? Like that's not, be efficient with things. So yeah, those are exactly what you said about all that, Ken, not smoking balls at them. There's a time for that. It's just not that time.
Right. And, when you mentioned about Mike Candrea, the first time I saw somebody rolling balls was actually a video of him working with the USA Olympic team. It was the national team, and he was rolling balls. And it was like, wow, that really makes sense because you can control where that ball is going. You can roll it side to side. You can roll it right at them. You can teach them to rake it coming in. And, it's accurate. It's fast. They pick it up. They make the throw. They get back in line, and you just keep everything rolling through. But I thought if it's good enough for the national team, it's good enough for my little 14U team.
Absolutely. And again, I think those are just super important things. For me, I really enjoyed the practice planning part because it gave me some focus on what we needed to. And again, like going back and looking at like games and things that we didn't do well, it was always an indication of like, okay, this is something we have to focus on, right? They don't know it yet. And I think that's important is understanding that they may not know. And if they don't know, guess what? It's your job to help them and to have them understand that, not just by telling them, showing them, right? Explaining it to them, breaking it down. Those are important things to do. And I think that, that's a part of being a coach that, and again, I say this all the time. We expect our we expect our players to continually put work in to be better. How many coaches are doing that? How many coaches are going to coaches clinics? How many coaches are reaching out to people, to other coaches, right? I know, like you and I we reach out to each other all the time. We've reached out to people that, to some of our mentors all the time. You and I didn't wake up knowing this stuff. We learned it, right? We were like, okay, I've got to lean on people who are going to help me be a better coach. But yet you see at the travel levels, like, nope, they think they know it all, right? And I'm not saying it, but like, we expect our players to get better and put the time in and do lessons, but yet our coaches don't have to put time in to get better and go to some coaches clinics, right? Even local ones, right? I think those are such important things, and learn from everybody. There's a high school coach out there, or probably a travel ball coach that you could learn from, that you and I could learn from, Ken, and we're open
Absolutely.
to that. Like I love that stuff. If I see something, I'm like, man, that is a great idea. Or some rec ball dad who's doing it right. Like, you're like, man, this is fantastic. I think that's it. You can't walk in thinking you know everything, because you don't. The second you do, you know nothing.
Right. And, when you're talking about that too, don't just go to softball coaches clinics. There are some general clinics on principles of coaching that apply to any sport. Go to some of that too. Some of the best information I ever got was from either from a general clinic or when I was coaching rec ball soccer. The AYSO would require anybody who was going to coach had to go to their basic coaching clinic. And I got ideas there that I was able to apply to softball later on, because it just made so much sense. It had, how to deal with kids, how to work with them, how to understand where they're coming from and work within their understanding. There is so much great information out there. The NFCA has a lot of it, but there are other resources as well, many other resources that you can look at.
Think about this for a second, Ken. We had Josh Johnson, the pitching coach from Virginia Tech, on here, who said he went and talked to the track coach about javelin throwers for front side resistance. I mean, that's outside of the box, but that's absolutely fantastic, right? I mean, he's specifically wanting to find things out. He didn't go to a softball conference to learn about that. He went to look and see what javelin throwers are doing. That's it. That's a person who just wants to continue to learn, right? And wants to continue to grow as a coach. So I thought that was incredible. Who's been, when he said that on the podcast.
Yeah. And, that makes me think of one other thing. And, we're getting probably to the point where we need to wrap it up. But one other question for you is, what do you think about sometimes involving parents? If you need an extra set of hands and you have people that are sitting around, I used to do that. I would have that, or I'd find out that someone was the middle school track coach somewhere, and I'd say, here, work with my runners. See if you can help them run faster.
Yeah, absolutely.
What do you think about that?
Yeah, absolutely. I think we need to, again, incorporate as many people as you can to help you, right? And again, those are specific things that person is good at. When people are good at something, you definitely want them to be a part of something. And I think, because again, that's their kind of passion and that's their kind of focus. So they're going to be able to give you much more in-depth details and help those kids better than you possibly could. And that's okay, right? Be humble about it. Mm-hmm. It's okay. I think that's an important aspect too. Yeah. I would be all for that as well, Ken.
Well, Jay, any other thoughts from you? Anything else you want to wrap up with?
No, sir. We got some really good guests lined up here coming up in the next few weeks, and hope everybody's enjoying the podcast. We appreciate everybody listening to it for sure. And again, if you can, go to Apple or Spotify, click like, share, leave us a review. All of that would be fantastic. We're getting some great responses and text messages from people, and we really appreciate you guys listening to us. And hopefully we're helping some people out there, helping some coaches and players as well. So again,
yeah. And if there's any other topics or people you think we should talk to, someone that you follow that you think would be a good one, let us know, and we'll certainly reach out and try to do that too. On behalf of the From the Coach's Mouth podcast, thanks for listening, and we'll see you guys next time.